Welcome to my podcast, Shaping Your Journey. My name is Aldo Mazza, percussionist, drummer, and artistic director of Kosa Music, inviting you into conversations with friends, artists, professionals, and experts in our music world. And remember to subscribe so you may receive notices on upcoming episodes and other great stuff. Today, I have the great pleasure, and I mean great pleasure, to have someone I've known for many years in my own career, Mr. Peter Sever. Thank you so much, Peter, for joining me. This was a chase. Yes, thanks.
Major.
And you're out on the West Coast right now. You used to live in Toronto when you and I first met. Let me just say that Peter was with Repercussion, was our manager, agent, and like the front man to a great organization, and we did great things. So I'll let him speak more about that. But tell me something, Peter. You're not were you a musician, or did you always live on that side of the world of the management and agent?
No, I'm strictly I'm a business guy, an adventurer, and I completely fluked upon the arts. I was doing my MBA, and I was dropping out because I had a job offer from General Foods, and I said to the woman, so if I'm really do a great job, it was a big job too. It was like $18,000, which was a fortune back then. And at the end of the first year MBA, and she said, well, if you do really, really well, you could be president of UBAN Coffee. Well, I hated UBAN Coffee, and I'm interested in my product. And I didn't want to spend my life pursuing a product just for money if I could avoid it. And the arts was about obviously much more than money. And in fact, it wasn't even about money. It was really just about loving the product. And so I ended up, long story short, I ended up at the National Ballet of Canada for 4 years, just magnificent 4 years, during the Nureyev era and the Sleeping Beauty and touring the world. And oh my God. And I got introduced to Saul Hirok, who was the greatest impresario of our lifetimes, a Russian New York Jew who basically invented ballet in North America. There was very little ballet. And he brought in the Kirov. He brought in Nureyev, and Nureyev defected, as we all know. And Hirok made ballet happen in North America on a big, big scale. And we were very lucky. Before I came along, we were very lucky that Saul Hirok hired the National Ballet of Canada and Nureyev, and the Sleeping Nureyev was his client. And he decided, Nureyev decided, everybody decided that Sleeping Beauty was the thing to do. So anyway, I came along just when the Sleeping Beauty was being built. And so I got exposed to the very, very highest end of ballet, of impresariodom, Saul Hirok. And he, quite honestly, was a huge influence on my life. So anyway, that's how I got into the arts, by pure fluke. I had been to one ballet in my life, and all of a sudden I'm sitting opposite Rudolf Nureyev in his living room in London in a Levi's double knit suit, because it's all I own, negotiating the Sleeping Beauty, which had gone ridiculously over budget, and I had to cancel it. So anyway, long story short, that's how I got into the arts. And then after that, I said, you know what? National Ballet can afford to have good management, but what about all the little guys, the small bands, soloists, Repercussion, which I didn't know about at the time, obviously, but small groups, string quartets, dance companies of various small touring. What about all them? They need management too. And who's looking after them? Nobody, not very well anyway. certainly
Exactly.
not at an international level. And so I decided to give that a shot, and I did, and it worked out. It worked well.
And that was
That's it.
your organization, GAMI, in Toronto.
That was GAMI, which still exists. Laurel Favreau still has it, and she lives in the U.S. She has it, but on a massively reduced scale. And yeah, and it's unfortunate, but I don't mean this as a brag in any way. In fact, I mean it as a bit of a complaint, a big complaint. Is that since GAMI, since I left GAMI, I was age 40 at the time. There is no Canadian major impresario, unless you can correct me, although you're in the industry, I'm not. I've been out for 35 years, but um, there is no major Canadian classical music impresario who's carrying the Canadian flag around the world and finding brilliant young talent in Canada and taking it to the major stages of the world. I don't think anybody's doing that. And I feel very sorry for the Canadian artists who deserve and can musically, artistically, otherwise justify a major international career, because good luck. You're going to have to go to New York, you're going to have to go to London and try to find yourself the impresario to look after you and build your career, or a
Yep.
major artist to take you under his wing.
Yeah. Well, what
It's
as you know,
tough.
I mean, part of that whole thing, and you remember, I think you were part of that whole scene when they, after the Trudeau government, the first Trudeau, Pierre Trudeau, who was really understanding of all of this. So he was the first guy to kind of step in and put Canada on the map, where they voted in that 70% content. So the music world then had to have records on radio. You couldn't get arrested in Canada at the time. I mean, only a few people were doing anything. But then, Lighthouse, Guess Who, the Staccatos back then, which became the five-man electrical band. That's in the pop world. The classical world was outside of Quebec was really not really existent, really. But Pierre Trudeau realized, and it was brought to his attention, so they put on a law that demanded that all music consumed in Canada had recordings, radio, et cetera, had to have a 70% content, which was amazing. So since then, of course, Canada has done super well, from Celine to, I mean, you name it. There's a lot of Canada there. But you are right, in the classical world, what happened? It was going well because the Canada Council, they had a touring office. You remember that we were always working with them. They spent a lot of money, and they were investing, developing Jeunesse Musicale, Youth in Music, which was a big organization in Quebec. They were well funded, and there was this up curve until the conservatives came in. I mean, Harper
Listen,
and the conservatives
I,
just chopped the
I don't
whole
want to
thing.
interrupt you. I don't want to interrupt you, but you know what? Although honestly, I don't see it as political. I
Yeah,
have, yes, you're right. Trudeau did introduce the Canadian content, and that was, of course, very good. But the reality is that the Canadian market
of
is
course.
something like, my number is 4% of the US and the EU combined. If it's 5%, don't shoot me. And if it's 3%, don't shoot me. But
Yeah,
4%
yeah,
is a reasonable guess at the size of our market versus EU and USA. Now, that doesn't
yes.
mean that every piano student from Drumheller, Alberta, has to go touring Greece. No, Greece doesn't want to hear every touring student from Drumheller, Alberta, or from anywhere else. And I'm not putting down Canada here, but we're a small country,
Yep.
and we have fabulous teaching. As far as I'm aware, our teaching is on a par with the best. in the world. I don't know if there's any criticism of our teaching, but from what I know, what I hear, it's all pretty good. And then there's a genetic factor. I mean, you either got it or you don't. You can't just turn anybody into a superstar. You got to have those very rare genes in music or dance or theater or whatever the art form is, be they creative or strictly reproductive. But you got to have the genes. So out of that huge genetic, well, it's not a huge, I mean, that genetic pool of, 40 million or whatever we are, comes a very, very small number of geniuses. I give you Andy Dawes, the late, great Andy Dawes, who was my friend. He was the first violin of the Orford String Quartet. He was from a small town in Alberta where his father was a farmer. He used to milk cows, whatever.
Right.
I don't know the details, but he turned out to be, with music lessons in Alberta and so on, and all over Canada, I guess, he turned out to be one of the handful of great, great chamber violinists in the world. Certainly bigger than anybody else in Canada in my lifetime. And they put together the Orford String Quartet, which was absolutely in the top tier. But what happens to those people? Do you hide their light under a bushel in Saskatchewan? Do you do occasional concerts in Toronto every couple of years? Do a 2-week tour of Canada every couple of years? What do you do in between? Nothing.
Yeah.
Teach. That's not nothing. But you don't get to play Alice Tully Hall or any of the other major chamber halls in the world. And not every town in Canada wants to hear chamber music. So you got to reach out to the rest of the world if you want to be a full-time professional musician. And a full-time professional musician should be doing 80 is kind of a minimum number of concerts per year to me, in my mind. If when I was a manager, if we did less than 80 concerts for a client, I thought, I got a problem. I got to do something. And probably 130 or something like that is getting close to the ceiling, because you got to have a home life too. So where do you get that number of concerts if you're Canadian? And my point is, you have to leave Canada to get it. You have to. I did a thing in Facebook recently where I did a quick summary of my life in pictures, kind of with short essays on each phase of it, each of my careers. And I said there in the arts section that, okay, the majority of artists can stay and be teachers and play in orchestras and do that kind of stuff. And if you're really, really good, you get in the Toronto Symphony, the Montreal Symphony, maybe the Vancouver Symphony, whatever. If you're really fantastic, but you're just a symphony player. If you want to be a soloist, what do you do? And my answer to that question is shrug. I don't know what you do. I got into business to help those people, and I did. I don't know. At Repercussion, we thought you guys were fantastic. I thought you guys were fantastic. You still are. You're really seriously good drummers, and it's a great, entertaining show. Did we get you a lot of gigs? It was kind of difficult because percussion wasn't a big deal. Did we get you a lot of gigs? I don't remember.
Yes, and it was. I mean, it was good, and it was. I mean, it was a harder sell, but we did tour around the world. We went to Asia 3 times. We did a lot of stuff in the States. We could have done a lot more, but I mean, we were doing probably 130, 140, 50 concerts a year. And
you were.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
You were, eh?
But we were also mixing it with. You remember there was a Jeunesse Musicale here. There was Zuckerman out the West Coast.
Yeah,
the mixture of all of these things, it was working out. But earlier when I'm talking the politics, I wasn't meaning to be political at all. What I mean is, in a place like Canada, you need to invest heavily, otherwise it doesn't work, or you have to leave, like you said. That's what I was getting at. It's either a
yeah,
heavy investment or you leave.
yeah.
In that regard. But when you came along, it was actually a great time when there was a lot of investment in culture here at the time, which produced, it gave people like you who wanted to give back and do something because you could. It gave hope to those people who were coming up, and there were great ensembles here. You had the Canadian Brass, Orford String Quartet. You had Moe Koffman. Wow, remember Moe? And when we came on the scene, we were like the traditional classical percussion group turned Pink Floyd. We said, we want to have fun with this music. It can't be visually impaired, and it has to be fun, but at the highest level. And we just had fun with it. And at one moment, we did a
Exactly.
showcase where we just blew everybody away, and they couldn't believe that this was a percussion group. And then that's when we signed up with you guys in Toronto.
Yeah, because what I remember about you guys is that at the time there was one other group, it was called Nexus, and they
Yes.
were quite serious musicians
Yes.
in Toronto, but they did kind of avant-garde music mostly.
Yes.
Am I mistaken? My 30-year-old memory.
No,
It was
you're
mostly
exactly
avant-garde
right.
music,
Yes.
and they weren't entertainment. You guys were entertainment. You crossed over. You were excellent musicians, excellent fun repertoire, um, and entertaining. You talked to the audience, you made jokes, you fooled around. It was really good. And that's why we took you on, because I figured that, okay, percussion's got a place. And if you can make a whole concert out of percussion, why not? It was fantastic. And it worked. Whatever. Did we really do over 100 concerts a year for you? That's a lot.
No,
I'm surprised.
between you and we booked a lot ourselves too. It was a mix of things, but you were
Right.
heading it, and people were calling on us and through you. So there was really a combination of things, from TV shows, radio shows. So you did as much as you could, especially in the circumstances. But it was good.
But
We were well
okay, but where do
represented.
you go? Okay, so skipping over that for a minute. If you're a young, talented musician today, you've got the genetic talent, you've got the physical skills, you've learned, you're even entertaining, you're good, you're good, you're good. Where do you go?
Good question.
But, but, so my point is, no, I praise Canada for its art support. I don't. This is not me complaining about Canada doesn't support us. It does. Canada is good. I'm not agreeing with absolutely everything, obviously, but Canada does provide good support for its arts. The one thing it has missed, however, is it has missed and coming up with an answer. Canada as a whole has missed coming up with an answer for the top end of our music and theater and dance. The top end.
Right.
A word you can't survive in Canada if you're a violinist of importance. And you can generalize that to almost any of the classical instruments. I managed John Vickers, for heaven's sake. Pavarotti, Domingo, Carreras, and Vickers were the fearsome foursome at the time. And Vickers was allegedly asked to join the Three Tenors, he
Okay.
told me. And now Vickers was a Canadian boy from Prince Albert, Saskatchewan,
Right.
who loved boxing and he loved hockey. And man, that guy could sing. Holy mackerel. He was a tenor. Uh, and he didn't come back to Canada for 30 years
Right.
until I picked him up. He came to me deciding at the end of his opera career he wanted to do a leader, which is really difficult, difficult stuff to listen to, and difficult love stuff to understand. But if you're a major opera nut, it's there.
Right.
So he came to me and asked, "Hey, you think you can book a leader for me?" And I said, "I'll get back to you." And I made a few phone calls. Yeah, I can book you. And he was expensive, very expensive. Now, he didn't need support. If you're managing something of the $30,000 per concert back then, giants who can afford to stay in five-star hotels and had limousines take them to the concert. Okay, but how do you get there? And John Vickers was soaked up by the world opera world because he was simply great. And he ended up doing Deutsche Grammophon recordings in New York and London Philharmonic and so on and so forth. But where is the next John Vickers?
Yeah.
And how does he get there? That's my question. And
But
I think the government of Canada, which I have been very clear, I'm not complaining about the general level of art support. Yeah, Trudeau did better than a lot of others and by putting Canadian content rules in and so on. But I'd rather have Canadian content simply because it's better.
Right. Right.
I'd rather hear you play something amazing, Aldo, just because it's amazing, than not because the Canada Council has given you $20,000 to play it. I don't want to hear you play just because Canada Council gave you 20,000. I want to hear you play because I want to hear you play.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah. No, you bring up a good point, and you're right. I mean, it should be value based, of course. But what happens? What I think the answer is, I don't think anybody can have a real international career staying in their own country, and especially here, because there's only so much you can do here. But you can live. I mean, we can live anywhere and be anywhere at any time today. So I don't think that's a problem. I mean, even Oscar Peterson, look at Oscar Peterson, one of the greatest pianists, jazz pianists of all time. He was a Montrealer and then moved to Toronto, but he didn't leave. He lived there, but he toured the world. And it doesn't matter where you live, but it does matter what you do with your career. So I think it's more important on the management level and career level, marketing and development, more so than where you actually live, especially now. What do you think?
Exactly. And and Oscar lived in Toronto, but nobody cared. I mean, you can look at the bio in the program and say, "Oh, he lives in Stockholm. Oh, he lives in." Who cares? Who cares?
Exactly.
He's Oscar Peterson.
Yes.
And like Moe Koffman, you mentioned when Moe came to me. Well, actually, when I called Moe, he didn't come to me. We heard him on the radio being interviewed on CBC, saying, "Oh, I had a call from Australia. They apparently I have a following down there. I don't know how to get to Australia." Hello,
Yes.
Mo. I'll get you to Australia. My name is Peter Sever. You want to go to Australia? Let's go. And he did. And Mo became a good friend, actually. Was a really, really great guy. And he ended up touring U.S. and Europe and so on. And we put together the Dizzy and Mo Super Show from the we met Dizzy Gillespie backstage at the Monterey Jazz Festival. Um, anyway, Moe had never toured the world. He'd never been out of Canada. Okay. Now, Moe wasn't a poor guy. He made a lot of money on the Swingin' Shepherd Blues. I mean,
Yes, he
it
wrote
was,
that. He
I
wrote
can't
that
remember how
back.
many versions it was published in, Elephants, Gerald, and everybody else. But uh, he didn't tour, and he didn't have a jazz band that was internationally known, and it was kind of Moe
Right.
well, we kind of answered the question who Moe was, and we took him on tour. So anyway, I'm repeating myself, but that's the basic point. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, when you were coming up with all of these ideas, and I remember you having very strong ideas in development, and you never took no for an answer. But going back, I remember you had told me this, that you did a concert, a benefit concert. Was it with the Guess Who that you booked the whole
Oh
thing?
yeah, yeah.
What was,
Well, and that was back at the National Ballet. Uh,
okay.
I was I was in charge of raising money for the National Ballet. We were broke, and one day, some impresario put together uh, Billie Jean King and what was his name? Bobby somebody or other tennis tournament. Famous tennis player, but it was clowning and it was like a male chauvinist joke,
Okay.
saying, "Oh, I can beat any woman on tennis, whatever, whatever." And anyway, put together this tennis tournament as well as a Guess Who concert for free. What? The Guess Who? They'd been off of touring for a year, I guess, or a year and a half. And their comeback concert, they donated to the National Ballet of Canada a concert at the Maple Leaf Gardens. Oh my God. And did we pack it? Oh, we packed it. Free for them. No fee for them. Maple Leaf Gardens charged us and so on and so forth, but we made a lot of money. Anyway, yes. Yeah, that was just a little side gig. It wasn't, but it was very interesting to watch. And putting together a rock concert is really quite a bit different than putting together a string quartet concert, I promise you. But fun. They're all
Yeah.
fun.
But it's interesting. Like, I mean, the creative process of thinking outside the box all the time, which you did, and I, I remember when we were approached by many different organizations, management people to manage us. All of a sudden, like, we were being attacked by everybody. So we said to everybody, okay, we're gonna have meetings and we're gonna have check everyone. We're going to go into your office and meet with you and then decide afterwards who we're going to work with. And that was really funny when we did that. And I remember coming away and I said to, the guys, we said, well, what do we all think? And one of the things that we came away from was, I mean, you still have this vision and you're tireless, the imagination, and you take no for an answer, you take no prisoners. I mean, this is the way it's got to be. You do it and you make it happen, right? Always.
Listen, although that's my theme song in life. Whatever you want to do, if you want to be a bricklayer, be the best damn bricklayer, and don't quit until that wall is done. Um, I remember one little story, and I think it's important to tell it because it really formed my life. This stupid little story. I was doing my undergrad, and I got a job at CN, Canadian National Railways, being a brakeman. It's the guy who pulls the pin and
Oh,
disconnects
yes.
the cars and throws the switches so the train goes left and right. And working up in the Downsview yard, at nights and weekends, it was great. Actually, it was great work. It was really great work. Fun for a student. Are you getting a full union wages? It was great. So one day I'm up in the engine with a conductor, killing some time, having a coffee. And the conductor was very proud of his son. And he asked me, like, where are you going to school and what are you going to do and all that? And I said, I don't know. He says, my son is a welder. And he was so proud of his son. He's the best damn welder in Toronto, too. And I thought, wow, if my father was proud of me like that, which he wasn't, if uh, if he could say, gee, my son was a railway worker, proud like no. This guy was really proud of his son being the best damn welder in Toronto. And I thought, wow, that is a lesson for everybody. You can get pride from anything. And being the best damn welder in Toronto is a very honorable profession. And Toronto needs welders. So I'm not dissing that at all. It's a question of being the best, of just applying yourself and being the best. Now, Aldo, you are the best damn drummer, best damn percussionist in Montreal, and maybe in Canada, and maybe in the world. And why? Because you try. You try really, really hard, and you put in the hours. You put in the months, years, the days, and the hours, and you made yourself fantastic at what you do. And I tell everybody, do that. I don't care what you choose to do. Don't choose to be an artist manager. It's a miserable damn way to make a living. But I mean, it's fun. But whatever you do, be the best. And that railway engineer who said, my son is the best damn welder in Toronto, I want to be the best damn in Canada.
Right.
The world. Aim high. Aim high. If you don't achieve it, okay, at least you came close. If you aim high, you're going to come closer to the top than if you aim low, for sure. 100% guaranteed. If you say, no, I just want to collect my salary, that's what's going to happen to you. You're going to just collect your salary. One day, there's going to be a layoff, and guess what? The next guy isn't getting laid off. You are. Why? Because he wants to be the best damn welder in Toronto, and you just want to be an hourly welder. So, anyway, I'll shut up. That was my lecture.
No, but you're absolutely right, Peter. And I mean, I think that's important, and have that kind of mindset. Which, obviously you've had that all along. You had put together an incredible team back there, and I remember Darlene Domovsky.
She was great.
Unbelievable. She was amazing.
Fantastic. And Laurel Favreau. They were
Yes,
really,
Laurel,
I had a really
amazing.
good team.
And there was another gentleman there who I remember when you guys booked us to open up for Buddy Rich in Toronto. That was
Peter Wayne.
Peter Wayne. That's right. And I said to Peter, Peter, make sure you bring a camera. We have to take a picture with Buddy Rich, because I had met Buddy Rich before, and I knew that I would be able to get close to him, to have a good picture of the four of us with Buddy Rich, because that's monumental.
You have
for
it?
us. Yes.
Send it to me.
Yes. And no, I'll definitely send it to you. But it was really funny, because while we were playing, Peter, I saw Buddy Rich there watching the whole show while we were opening up for him. And he doesn't usually do that. And afterwards, during break before he went on, he looks at us and says, you guys are really good. And then he went up.
Exactly. You know what? And that means a lot to me. And that kind of feedback meant a lot to me. You asked me where I come from. I'm not a musician. I can barely read music. Barely. And probably I can't. But the feedback I got good ears. And I can feel it. I can feel the music. And when you get a guy like Buddy Rich telling you, hey, you guys are really good, that means everything.
Sure.
As long as Buddy Rich isn't just bullshitting and being polite,
No, Buddy Rich was
Uh,
not known to be just polite. you know,
so,
he no
sorry?
Buddy Rich always told it like it is. So
Good. There you go. Well, I'll tell you, when Dizzy Gillespie said to me backstage at Monterey, I hadn't even met him, like barely met him. I was waiting for his turn or whatever. Mo was on stage with his fabulous band. He had a fabulous band. And Mo was very middle of the road. I mean, that was his big accusation. Oh, he's middle of the road. I don't care. As long as people like listening to him, good. Oh, middle of the road, high end, low end, who cares? But Dizzy said to me, "Hey, man, he's king of the sax." When Dizzy Gillespie tells me that my client is king of the sax, I love him. And I said, "Oh, okay. How about playing with him?" "Yeah, okay." That was it. Dizzy and Mo Super Show was born. No, but
yeah,
when Buddy Rich says to you, "I wish I had known that at the time if I was around," I would have, "Hey, how about Buddy Rich with the quartet, with Repercussion?" I don't know.
yeah.
Why not? Anything you can do to sell tickets.
No, we had another idea at around no, it was a little bit later when I had Neil Peart, the drummer for Rush, was a very good friend of mine. And at one point, one thing I always respected about Neil Peart, whether you like Rush, the music, or not, they did something that was really extraordinary on their own terms. They were great musicians. The music in the beginning was really tough for people to handle, but they did it on their terms. They were super successful financially and artistically. And then we kind of did the same thing because we actually turned down a big record deal. Probably, I think it was after you were no longer there. Polygram Records approached us, and it was the time when remember the video DVs came out. It was that whole video, a visual
The
thing.
big, the big, the big things.
Yes. So we played in their. They had a big meeting, and we played their conference, and then they called us in, and it was Boris. Not yeah, Boris Brat who was there, and he said, and he was in this meeting, and he said, he did a presentation also, and then they asked us for a meeting, and they said, we've been talking about you, and we've seen what you're doing. You're great performers, and you're expanding the percussion repertoire, but percussion is a new realm, and unless you're doing contemporary percussion, which is a very small market, it's not that interesting from a record company point of view. But what you guys are doing is amazing, and now is the time. Now the technology has arrived where this would be your vehicle, meaning because we're so visual with what we were doing also, it was a perfect vehicle for them also to capitalize on. And we thought, oh, beautiful, finally on our terms, because we never changed what we did. We would do a Bach fugue, and each one of us would move around and be the voice moving around. And we get, critics would say, oh, Bach didn't write that for xylophones and marimbas. And then we'd fight back and say, well, Bach didn't write it for piano either. you know, so
Who
that
cares?
we were always fighting that fight. But here we are, Polygram Records are ready to sign us. But one thing happened. Our question for them was, who gets the last word on the artistic level? And they said, well, of course we do. We will decide exactly which repertoire and whatnot. And then we had our meeting, and we went back and we said, listen, we love this. This is an opportunity of a lifetime, and we can go crazy with this. We have so many ideas, but we have to have the final word on the artistic level. And we couldn't agree on that. So we walked.
Oh no! Really? Oh shit!
We just
I wish I
couldn't.
was around. He wouldn't have. Yeah,
You know,
it would have ended differently.
yeah.
Oh
So
dear, oh
it
dear.
would have been
Well,
perfect.
you know what? That's a big topic.
Yes.
That's a big topic. But let me just tell you something. cash is king. Whoever's got the cash is the king. Now, you want the cash and you want the fame of Polygram Records, negotiate until you're both satisfied. Okay. Anyway, it's easy for me to be a wise old man at 2020 hindsight. But let me give you two tiny examples of my own life in the arts. Both of them in Europe. And this goes back to my point about having international impresarios. One of the things that impresarios do is they scratch each other's backs. So you take my artist, I'll take yours. Okay. So in London, England, one day, I can't remember which artist, but I just made a deal with this British agent for one of my clients to tour UK and maybe all of Europe. And he said, obviously it came up, okay, so what do you want to try to sell me? He says, go in the back room. So I go in the back room and he puts on this really crappy video of the Cambridge Buskers in Japan.
Yes, I remember.
A flute and an accordion. What? Are you kidding?
They were great.
A flute accordion duo? I mean, come on. A percussion quartet is already pushing the edge here. Flute and percussion, a flute and accordion duo, and they're funny. They have 3,500 seat hall, roughly. I just looked at the video, and I guess 3,500 seat hall. In Japanese, they had 3,500 Japanese laughing, and it was VHS versus PAL. I was a conversion from PAL to VHS. It was a terrible video, horrible. And I'll distinctly remember, this is my business mind thing. Okay, let's assume they can play well. They've got 3,500 Japanese laughing their heads off. They can make North Americans laugh too. Okay. So I said to him, I came out and I said, what do you do for recordings with these guys? Said, oh, they're on Deutsche Grammophon. What? Deutsche Grammophon was the Rolls Royce. It was the Rolls Royce.
Yes.
At the time. It was the best. And they were the only crossover act on Deutsche Grammophon.
Yeah.
In other words, not pure straight classic. Said, okay, I'll take it a shot. I'll give it a shot. Well, Michael Copley and I are still personal friends. He's the flute player. I toured them through North America. They were a monster hit. And it was all because of two things. One, they made 3,500 Japanese laugh. And I figured, boy, I can't make 3,500 Japanese laugh no matter what. And then Deutsche Grammophon, oh my God. So that's one story. And it became quite big. The Cambridge Buskers were really one of my fine acts. And they were wonderful to tour because it was just nothing but a bunch of flutes.
Yes.
And when they're small, piccolos and flutes and whatever, and an accordion. Okay, can all fit on an airplane, no problem. And the other one, very quickly, was the Amsterdam Guitar Trio. A guitar trio from Amsterdam, or what? They were on RCA Records. And I heard in Amsterdam, they bought 2 weeks of the Orford, I think, in Amsterdam, Netherlands Impresariat, which was a state-subsidized arts management company, which I'm actually advocating in my old age now for Canada, because the international thing is not being addressed by unsubsidized. But in any case, he says to me, okay, take a listen to this and tell me what you think. And there was the Amsterdam Guitar Trio playing the Four Seasons. Oh my God, was it good. Now, your critics can say, oh, Vivaldi didn't write for the guitar. Shut up. Who cares? It's really beautiful, fantastic music. Shut up. He did. Vivaldi also didn't play for the electric guitar, write for the electric guitar. A lot of other things he didn't write for. But there's lots of ways to play his great music. So anyway, we booked them 150 concerts in North America, and they refused to play them all. They only played 80. I was so impressed. But RCA Records, and I was able to do that. That's why I would have, if I'd known about Polydor or Polygram Records and your negotiation, I would have definitely run interference. But anyway, we sent that record out. I ordered a ton of them from Holland and sent them to everybody, along with a record saying, if you don't buy this, you're stupid, basically. And they did. It was subsidized by the Dutch government, too. It was quite cheap. Anyway, sorry, tangent.
Yes.
But the recordings are absolutely extremely important because it tells the buyer, not so much the customer, but the customer too. The customer thinks, oh, my goodness, he's on Deutsche Grammophon or he's on Polydor, it must be good. But the presenter thinks that, and he's the key decision point. So if I can go to a guy in Pasadena, which I did in Pasadena, a huge amount of money, a big hall. My first booking for the Cambridge Buskers was Pasadena because the guy, Deutsche Grammophon, flute, accordion,
Yes.
what? Okay, I'll take it. Like big hall, 2,000, 3,000 seats, maybe more. Anyway, I digress.
Yes.
Sorry.
But I mean, in those days, I mean, I remember the Buskers and the guitar trio. I mean, the Buskers were amazing. They're amazing, and
They were.
yeah,
They were amazing.
And then with the guys we had mentioned, we had talked about, hey, wouldn't it be cool? Why don't we do something with them? That would be cool.
Really?
Well, we amongst ourselves. I mean, we were busy doing all kinds of stuff, and I don't think it ever came up to actually do it. We had a number of things that we had started exploring, but you know, some of it you throw it out and people are not ready for it, or they're touring, they're too busy to pay attention to it. You know, there's a million reasons why something doesn't happen. Sometimes they happen.
Well, you know what? I'll tell you something. Based on my recollection, I don't think I ever contemplated even suggesting to you to change the show. I thought the show was fantastic. Did I ever raise a subject to you?
No.
Hey, you know, maybe we should do a little bit more of this, a little bit less of that. No, I don't think so. Because I watched the show and I said, it's spot on. They understand their audience. They've got their humor. They've got their little jokes and the visual jokes, and they play bloody well. What am I going to improve? Nothing. I think it's great the way it is. And I think that Repercussion was spot on. You know, I admired Nexus, and I was a Toronto boy, and they were in Nexus, and they were in Toronto, and I knew the guys, you know, through social circles. But Nexus was a hard sell.
Right.
And it didn't, I don't think they went very far, even though they were absolutely first-class drummers.
Oh yeah, it was a great
percussionists.
great
absolutely
musicians.
first class, right? I mean,
Sure.
you know better than me.
Absolutely, and we were kind of the new kids on the block when we came on the scene.
Exactly.
Yeah, and
you were the only ones. I don't know, but there's one thing I did with you guys. I remember John. Speaking of John Krypton, was he had the Toronto International Festival on, and he was running the Toronto International Festival, and he asked me for suggestions. And I came up with the idea of, how about a Repercussion except giant? Giant Repercussion. He says, what do you mean? I said, well, okay, what about the best ever African drummer. And at the time, I'd heard of Abraham Azinya from
Yes.
Ghana, who played the talking drums. And if I lived in Ghana, I knew drumming. If you live in Ghana, every single night you hear drumming. Okay, I'm not exaggerating when I say every single night. I'm saying every single night when you go to sleep, somewhere or other, you hear drumming. They're drumming and dancing and drinking uh, everywhere, all night, every day. It's fantastic. So anyway, Abraham Azinya, I somehow found him. He was in Rhode Island, I guess, or something
Connecticut.
like that.
He was in
Where was
Connecticut.
he? Somewhere like that.
Wesleyan
Anyway, and we
University.
kept adding and adding and adding. And then there was a Japanese percussion group coming over, touring North America. There was on and on and on and on. And we built it and we built it and built it and built it and built it to the giant crescendo. And I think at the end, there was like 50 drummers. Am I exaggerating?
Well, we had who else was? I think Samuel Nori was there from Korea. The we were supposed to have actually Steve Gadd. Steve Gadd was supposed to play that concert.
Steve Gadd.
Yeah,
He didn't
was
come.
he was supposed to play, but finally last minute he couldn't make it. He canceled and got someone else came in, a great drummer from Toronto. We had Pandit Sharda Sahai on tabla.
Yes.
Yeah, he was great.
That was a great show.
At Roy Thompson Hall. That was a great show.
It was a great show. I think we did 2 shows, didn't we?
I don't remember.
Okay.
I don't
Anyway,
remember. Yeah.
I just remember it was super percussion. It was. I'm going to move. I'm a little bit uncomfortable. 1 second.
Yeah.
How's that?
Yeah, that looks good. No, that was a
Okay.
great show, and we did. Consequent to that, we all played together at the end and did this fantastic thing. And consequent to that, we started working because we were working on West African drumming, but from Ivory Coast and Guinea, which is totally different, the French side. But we were interested in what Abraham Azinya was doing, so we studied also a little bit of that. And at one point, Peter Zosky invited us to do something on the air. This was really huge. So what we did was Abraham Azinya in Toronto. He happened to be in Toronto. We were in Montreal, and a friend of ours in Vancouver. What was his name? A great percussionist who also played some West African drums, and we played live on his morning show on the air, radio, live of that distance. This was one of the first times ever I think that people played of that distance live on the air with all the cues. It was
Wow.
amazing.
Synced.
Yeah. So it was
Wow.
it was weird. Yeah.
That was. You know what? I really, honestly, although this is personal, but I really miss those days. I miss the arts. Coming up with these crazy ideas and actually doing them.
Yes.
It was so much fun. Super percussion was a lot of fun for me because it was,
Yeah.
A creative idea. It was because of you guys. You guys, it was building on your guys' shtick. It was a great show. John Krypton stole it and ended up touring it. That's okay. I had other things I was doing, but it was a great show. But it was a very hard show to put together. I think there was actually almost 50 drummers at the end in the grand finale. It was huge.
Yeah, I don't remember.
With Abraham Azinya standing in front and center. Oh, that guy could play, huh?
Yes. It was amazing.
He was great. You all could play. Hey, listen.
And the nice
I haven't got a negative word to say about anything you guys did.
Thank you, man. But the fun thing was on that level to be working with people from all over the world in their culture, and we're bringing what we have to them, and everybody's checking out this other stuff. It's beautiful. I mean, talk about piquing your curiosity all the time, and everybody was open to everything all the time. That was nice.
I really, although honest to God, I'm just telling you this as an old friend. I really miss the business. Um, I was I was really sorry to leave. I'm still sorry I had to leave, but I needed to make more money. And you know, in the I hate to be crass and materialistic, but as an artist manager in the classical arts, there are no millionaires. And there are people who survive, but particularly if you're just looking for the Canadian market,
Yeah.
you just can't live. I feel sorry for these guys. Some of them are good, I mean, I'm not knocking them, I'm not criticizing them at all. Um, but I knew that I was 40 when I left, and I knew that I had 20 years to make some money because I wanted a nice house, nice car, and not to worry about my pension. I didn't want to live on CPP, So I finally packed it in. The government wasn't helping me. I was paying my own way, making money, living in New York, touring National Ballet, touring Stratford, co-producing shows with David Mervish, doing small groups like you guys in the Orford, and pianists like Kuerti, and all kinds of stuff like that. But when the year was over, if I didn't have any catastrophes, that was a big one, because in the arts there's always catastrophes, because you're booking 2 years ahead, and during 2 years people die and all kinds of stuff happens, right?
Yes.
And that happened to me. Eric Brune died just before I launched the big National Ballet Tour. Oops, Miami canceled. Are you kidding? A week of National Ballet canceled because Brune died. Anyway, I recovered from that by getting Nureyev to do a guest appearance. Thank God he was able to do a walk-on for me. But anyway, I really miss the business, and I had to leave. I had a good time afterwards. I made money. I sold a lot of computers. Sold a lot of computers.
Right.
Did a lot of world travel, but my life regret at my ancient age is I wish I could have stayed in the arts.
Well, Peter, it's never too late. With all your wisdom and experience, who
It is
knows?
late. It is
Who
late.
knows?
Yeah, no, it is late. Look, about, was it 15 years ago, 10 years ago, I went down to Cuba. Somebody told me, I know you're a big Cuba guy. You're busy there all the time. Somebody told me about a dance company down there in List Alfonso. They did tap dance. And Pebbles Wadsworth told me she used to run UCLA. She was a good friend. Anyway, I went down there and I made a deal with them, and I took them around the world. Didn't end well.
Right.
It didn't end well through their behavior. So, no, I don't want to do it anymore.
Well,
Two big years with them.
Yeah.
In my 60s.
Yeah, they're good. But there was another group that I had mentioned to you about, called Havana Compass Dance, which to me was the next river dance. But I mean, when you got that kind of experience, and a negative experience, sometimes the right thing comes along that was the wrong timing. But anyway, that's life.
Anyway,
that's
hey,
life.
Listen, you win some, you lose some in every business. Okay, it's
That's
not
right.
just showbiz.
Exactly.
Believe me.
But
It's just the problem with showbiz is that at the performing arts end, not the showbiz end. The showbiz, like Broadway, the sky's the limit. I mean, you do get Riverdance continuing on for 20, 30 years, whatever it's been, and making money hand over fist. And Cirque du Soleil.
yes.
I mean, that's performing art. Really, it's circus, but it's dance. It's amazing.
Yeah.
I missed that one. That was that was an opportunity I should have grabbed. But you get these groups continuing on the big stage forever and ever and ever. But in the performing arts, where you're performing 500-seat halls, 1,000-seat halls, 1,500-seat halls, one performance, one night, next town, next night. Oh, you can't make a serious. You can make a living, but you can't get rich.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. That's the difference. Well, and that's what it's.
There you go.
Yep. Anyway.
That was a burden of my life.
Yeah. But you
But I
did
do
some.
miss the industry, and I miss you.
Yeah.
I miss crazy guys like you.
I'm really happy that we finally caught up. And I mean, you were once when we launched. I did a launch of a DVD. We did an instructional DVD. We made a launch in Toronto, and you came out. I'm so happy you came out and it supported that. But it's always nice to catch up with you, whatever, because you're one of those forces and people we learn from, and it's nice to share stories and ideas and thoughts and get sometimes challenged. That's good.
Listen, listen. If whoever's listening to this, I don't know who your audience is. I don't know anything about any of what you're doing here and who I'm talking to. Nothing. You just asked me to talk to you, and I'm talking to you. But whoever's listening, I would just like to say that whatever you choose to do, be like the train conductor's son. Be the best damn welder in Ontario, the best damn welder in Toronto. Don't just be an average welder. You can if you want to collect a salary. That's fine. But if you have ambition and you're doing something, playing a musical instrument, writing, I don't know, doing anything, you're a truck driver, whatever you're doing, do it really, really well and stand out. And then all of a sudden, people will take notice of you and the business will come flooding to your door. If you have to beg, please hire me, it means that the guy who's hiring you hasn't heard of you already. And my goal in life was always, I don't know what I'm going to do, but I'm going to be damn good at it. Now, how do I get damn good at it? Well, I worked.
Yeah.
I worked. And when I was 23 or 24 at the National Ballet of Canada, which was my first paid job, I didn't have a single date. I didn't go out on a single date for over a year. Why? Didn't have any money. I was assistant general manager of the National Ballet. I was making $10,000 a year when General Foods had offered me a whopping $18,000. But I didn't want to manage U-Band Coffee. I wanted to manage the National Ballet of Canada. And it was starvation wages, but it's okay. It was a great experience. Wonderful, wonderful time. But I couldn't afford to go out on a date for over a year. I was building my skills and I was building my house. I built a house with my bare hands, renovated a house with my bare hands, and no dates. And I was just damn serious about what I was doing. And in the process, I became good at it. There were a lot of dabblers. The arts attracts a lot of dilettantes and dabblers who just want to be seen on the scene, SCENE, scene. They just want to hang around with famous people and rub shoulders and I didn't care about that. I wanted to know, what can I do for these people that makes them come to me for my service?
Yep.
And what I realized early on is the same thing as I realized today, 50 years later, and that is that you guys like you, Aldo, and your kin, the really good musicians in Canada, the work is not beating down your door. The work, you got to fight for every gig, and you got to build your reputation such that they come to you. And that ain't easy, particularly when you don't have an advertising budget.
Yeah.
You don't have a marketing budget. You've got to take this young 14-year-old cellist from Banff that her father twisted my arm and made me take her on, Shauna Ralston. What do you do with a 14-year-old cellist? God, she's not even in high school. She hasn't finished high school. What do you do with her? Well, you build up her name to the point that the Berlin Philharmonic calls up, can we get Shauna Ralston? That's what you do. No, that did not happen. But others did. And I had to with other artists, you got to make it such that they call you.
Yeah.
Anyway, all I'm telling you is I'm sorry if I'm lecturing here, but be the best in the world at whatever you want to be. If you can't be best in the world, be second best. If you can't be second best, be third best. But struggle to be the really good, because that way people will want to hire you and they'll pay you more.
Yep. Well,
and you'll get the self-satisfaction of, hey, I accomplished this. I did that. My son is the best damn welder in Toronto, said the train engineer.
Yes. But those are really helpful words and of wisdom, actually, because leaving a mark and also being proud of what you do and staying on your track and making you and eventually being you. And I want to thank you for all these your kind words and of wisdom that I think people will understand. And it's a universal theme. You got to be the best. Otherwise it's not the same. And it's always good to be bringing.
Sorry to interrupt you, Aldo. Sorry to interrupt you. There's one more thing I want to say to you.
Yes.
Like, okay, as a percussionist, you found extra time on your hands for whatever reason. I don't know what's happened to your career. Nothing. I haven't been in contact with you in 30 or 40 years, whatever it's been. It's actually 35 years. We haven't since I left the business. But you are branching out in all kinds of related fields and making a career for yourself in stuff that the world didn't make a career for you in. Like, for example, this podcast.
Right.
And like, for instance, your Cuban Costa thing, which I know nothing about. But I admire and respect the fact that you're going out and you're hustling gigs for yourself that don't exist.
Right. Thank you, Peter. It's it's a burning desire to do something, an idea, and you explore it, and then you can't be stopped, and you just do it. What's the worst thing? What's the worst thing that can happen? Nothing. What's the best thing that can happen? Something.
Something. Exactly.
But
exactly.
Yeah.
You've summed it up, and I congratulate you. I'm serious. I tried to help you as best I could in the on stage, exposing you to as many people as I could. It could have continued, but I had to leave. I went out and I sold computers. I became the largest Mac dealer in Canada.
Wow.
Mac computer dealer when Apple was 3% of the market. Same principle, identical to what I just said about the arts. Be the best. I tried to be the best Apple dealer in Canada, and guess what? We won.
Nice.
So, that's it.
Okay. Well, that's important that we have that kind of mindset, the mindset of accomplishing something for ourselves. So I want to really thank you, Peter, for taking the time to join me today. And as I always say, to be continued.